Welcome to the INFOWARS Nightly News. It is Friday, May 8th, 2015, and I'm Leanne McAdoo. Here's a look at tonight's top stories.
Tonight, a homeschooling family has their children seized by the state. Then, is there such a thing as a moderate rebel? And a World War II veteran's take on modern America. That's next on the INFOWARS Nightly News.
Triggers will be flipped in your mind, in your gut, in your soul, and you will then see the mission laid out for you in God's plan specific to you.
If you really want to know what Jade Helm is all about and the meaning behind mastering the human domain, rounding up dissidents, just take a look at who they're actually targeting. Now, they're going to tell you that they're just targeting those who they consider anomalies, people who don't really fit into this equation. They'll tell you that their Skynet program, yes, they actually have a surveillance program called Skynet. And they're going to tell you that it's just about, following the online communications of potential terrorists. They say they use that phone metadata to track the location and call activities of suspected terrorists to detect any suspicious patterns of these terrorists. They say they're not going to use your Facebook posts against you. Well, not if you're an ISIS sympathizer, that is. Just take a look at what happened in Garland, Texas. Now, the FBI director is coming out. He's saying hundreds, if not thousands, of ISIS sympathizers across the country. They're trying to be recruited from the terrorist group. They're also saying ISIS is giving these people directives to attack the United States, leveraging social media to direct these messages to disturbed people. James Comey said, it's like the devil is sitting on their shoulders saying, kill, 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 which is obviously really ironic considering it's the FBI who has been caught time and time again setting up mentally unstable patsies to pull off their false flag attacks. But the point here is that the FBI is admitting Elton Simpson, one of the shooters, was long known to federal authorities. He'd been under surveillance for some time. And the FBI is now admitting that they sent a bulletin to local police warning them hours in advance about Simpson possibly wanting to come to this event. But instead of actually, setting up an FBI presence there and following through on this lead, the FBI, they don't do anything. They just take a step back, and once again, a terror attack is allowed to take place. So here, why are they doing all this monitoring of social media? What are they even doing? They're just saying, oh, he's a potential terrorist. He's a potential terrorist. He might go out and follow through with an attack there in Texas, but we're not going to do anything about it. No, instead, authorities are targeting Americans with traditional rural lifestyles. These are the anomalies. These are the terrorists, according to the state. Here's a headline up at INFOWARS today, and every single American should be infuriated about this. Police seize 10 children from off-grid homeschool family. This happened Wednesday in Kentucky, and this was after receiving an anonymous tip. Oh, see something, say something. Sheriff's officers set up a blockade around Joe and Nicole Nogler's rural property before they entered the premises. Now, 8 of the kids were out with their father, but Nicole and 2 of her oldest children were at home. She attempted to drive away to avoid having her children be taken by police. She was subsequently stopped and then arrested for resisting. The sheriff then demanded that the father turn over the other 8 children by 10 a.m. the next day or face felony charges. And this is an order with which he complied. So what was their crime? Basically living off the grid, showing people via their Facebook posts how they were this happy family. They considered themselves this blessed and blissful family, living off range on their some 30 acres of land, homeschooling their children. So that is terrorist act here in the United States of America. You can't post pictures of your very happy family and your kids and your off-grid lifestyle and let America know that it's possible to have a really happy, healthy family that isn't dependent on the state. That is terrorist activity. So these are people, they're not crazy. This is how people in America used to live. They used to live off the land. They used to be homeschooled. But now some of their snitch neighbors or fellow Americans are now thinking that people like this are terrorists, that they're not receiving a proper education because they're not getting an education by the state. when 9 times out of 10, you'll talk to some of these homeschool kids and they're much more intelligent than your average 8, 10, 12-year-old that's out there who's just absorbed with technology all day long and wants to play their video games and everything. These children a lot of times are a lot more intelligent and they know a lot more about what's going on and they're in tune with nature. You know, it's just they think that these children aren't receiving a proper education because they don't know how to take these standardized tests and they're not being trained to take these standardized tests. So those are terrorists. But look at some other terrorists that are being targeted by Homeland Security. Vegan potluck terrorists. That's right. This was a Facebook event page created by an animal rights activist group last September, and it was being monitored by a Texas counterterrorism unit. One of the specialists there with the Texas Department of Public Safety alerted fellow employees to the National Weekend of Action shortly after discovering the page. And this group was hosted by the Institute for Critical Animal Studies. The event's description called for activists to set up film viewings, workshops, protests, and vegan potlucks to educate the public about federal laws that specifically target animal advocates. And boom, there you go. That's what it's about. Educating the public on these federal laws and probably ways that they can protect themselves from being targeted by the feds. So of course, educating the public, terrorists. Now, the thing that really infuriates me is that we are being told by the mainstream media that we are not allowed to offend radical Islam with cartoons. Yet we have families who are raising happy, healthy children with their own religious beliefs, and that is okay. We can offend those people. We can steal their children, kidnap their children away from them, and separate them, throw them in foster care, give them up to the state, because I'm sure that's going to be a much better existence for them there. Those are the people that we're allowed to target. We're allowed to offend those people, and we should be offended by Americans and a rural lifestyle. Now, that's what I'm going back to. That's what you have to look at and see about what Jade Helm is all about. Why are they targeting Americans? Why are they targeting dissidents? It's the people who will not blindly follow the state who are the anomalies. These are the people who are the anomalies that aren't going to just go along to get along, do whatever the state says. Oh, let's not offend radical Islam, even though they're beheading Christians and raping little girls and forcing them to remarry different ISIS soldiers again and again and again. No, let's not offend them. They're just pillars of society. You know, they're not even going to take down ISIS Twitter accounts, but they're going to go after a family who posts these off-grid photos and vegan potlucks. I mean, that's what's so messed up. Now, this method of detecting suspicious patterns is something that they can only do if they scoop up massive amounts of data so they are able to determine what is normal. Now, David Knight and Rob Dew explained this process yesterday and how it ties to Jade Helm, how we've got them and we know that this is about America. It's not about training overseas. And there's a video posted up in full on INFOWARS.com about the military-industrial complex seeking to overlay a human geological map onto a physical geological map to track individuals. So they'll be able to find those areas where they have those anomalies, those families who aren't just going to willingly and blindly follow the state. They want to be able to track those individuals, track the people who respond to certain articles, the people who pass out flyers and show up to protest. They want to see what areas are going to be easier to take over. What are the really truly hostile areas? What are the permissive areas? And so they're building this whole entire database that they can then overlay over a physical geological map and, you know, be better prepared. That's what Jade Helm is all about. Now, Rob Dew and David Knight joined Alex Jones on the Alex Jones show today, and they did an extended overdrive breaking this down even further. So definitely go to INFOWARS.com or the Alex Jones YouTube channel for the full entire hour of them breaking this down in depth. But here is a clip.
This is the accelerated rollout ahead of economic collapse, and they know when 1 in 10 has autism, when people are all dying of cancer, there's going to be civil unrest. People are going to say no.
When nobody has money to prep.
And the military is going to come and just take you away because you're a terrorist.
Yeah. Like they practiced in Fort Lauderdale just the other day. They were putting people in white vans and driving them off.
But this is confirming, because, you know, starting with you about 20 minutes ago through now will be the first video we put up on YouTube today. this is just the first salvo. Yes, Jade, proof. Jade Helm is for domestic takeover. But we need to add the proviso, not the takeover itself, the training for the takeover.
It's an exercise in the takeover is what it is.
You were trying to talk before we went to break, David. Tell us, preview what's coming up with you in the next hour with Rob Dew.
Well, what we need to do, Alex, is we need to break down so that people really understand that they just don't put these words up at random. When they say mastering the human domain, when they talk about it being unconventional warfare, when I talked to the ABC reporter, she had already written a story on Jade Helm. She says, well, it's realistic, but it's unconventional. I said, no, unconventional warfare is a very specific term. It is a PSYOP first and foremost, but mastering the human domain is a very specific term of art of the Department of Defense. So we're going to tell people what the human domain is, why it's significant about this mapping that we see. And of course, that is just the tip of the iceberg. That is a very coarse map that
it's like saying jiu-jitsu is a art form of martial arts or taekwondo. We have these terms. You go look them up. It's giant, huge meetings for domestic takeover. That's on the logo. Fits in with, quote, blending in, doing things that look illegal.
Yes.
I mean, that's why they're freaking out so bad is this is domestic. We gave them the benefit of the doubt. We looked into it. They've been caught lying. It's a giant domestic takeover.
This is folding in the intel they're getting from the surveillance state. This is folding it into these military operations. When we look at dragnet surveillance, eventually, if we don't stop this, it is going to come to the point where they drag you out in the middle of the night like we just saw in Fort Lauderdale, just as they've been authorized to do.
That's what they're going to do when you don't
NDAA.
Vaccinate or you homeschool.
Exactly.
If they're already doing a low-intensity rounding folks up, it's going to intensify.
Well, notice how that family, they put something out on Facebook. It went into the cloud. The cloud analyzed it and said, threat matrix. We got to send somebody out after them. The orders come into the CPS. They go take the kids away.
Yeah.
That's how that's how it's going to work.
And I'm about overtly fighting this and saying it's morally wrong, corrupt, and evil. But people can also choose the other route, use Facebook and Twitter for disinformation. Mm-hmm. And I think it's patriotic duties. It's time. This is very sophisticated, folks. You got to be careful. But it's time to start pumping it with disinfo. Not lies about media events and things, but your own homestead, your own house, what you're doing. I would say use it, but only use it to create a false image.
Yeah. There you go.
The only way to defeat something like this is to pump it full of disinfo.
Yeah. So then there's so much, it overloads the system. I mean, we're going to go through the whole thing. There's another aspect of this from that C-SPAN interview, which I kind of glossed over, and I got called out on it by, why didn't you cover the robot section? There's a whole part where the guy talks about they have autonomous robots walking around as soldiers and civilians at that asymmetrical Fort AP Hill Center.
I think that just
they're
kind of
training for the robots to come after us. That's the headline. AP Hill training robots to fight. I mean, it's on. Listen, they're announcing China plans to get rid of, within 5 years, 90% of its workers.
Yeah, with robots.
And here's the thing.
I mean, it's on, folks. It's on. I mean, it's their plan.
When they ask him about Jade Helm, Alex, when they ask him about Jade Helm, and he glances off and he goes, and he nods, and he goes, I don't know anything about that. And now he's got to come up with something to talk about.
They were doing that at Bastrop.
He kind of unconsciously goes and it's like, well, we got autonomous robots. Yeah, so it's like, let's change the subject over here to something interesting. That's the thing that's first and foremost on his mind.
They did that like 100 times. Jakari was telling me, and Biggs, that to say anything, the lieutenant colonel would look back at the private corporation. And they're the ones that give the money to the government to lobby. They're now in control of the military. Mm-hmm. So we're fighting for the future of the military. Hey, Chuck Norris is on our side. You guys are in trouble.
We can't lose.
We'll be back. The Republic is rising. The sleeping giant is rising.
A chemical spill contaminating the water supply in 9 West Virginia counties.
What are the health effects of having these drugs in our drinking water?
It's forced medical treatment without the consent of residents.
My friends, water filtration is one of the most basic actions you can take to protect you and your family from the harmful toxins and heavy metals in your tap water.
On average, the county says it sprays with the glyphosate at least once a week.
Few filters cut out the glyphosates that is found in water supplies worldwide. Remove pesticides, herbicides, chloramines, hydrofluorosilicic acid, sodium hexafluorosilicate.
Fluoride, it is in tea, it's in coffee, it's in water, it's in bread, it's in toothpaste.
It is our responsibility